Imagine the suffocating silence of a small Texas border town in 1985 when two uniformed officers, Sheriff Ray Holbrook and Deputy Leah Ortega, simply vanished during a routine night patrol. Their patrol car found abandoned on a lonely highway with keys still in the ignition. No blood, no witnesses, no trace. The department declares it a runaway scandal. The sheriff, accused of harassment, supposedly kidnapped his young deputy and fled across the border. Case closed. 16 years later, in the parched Chinati Mountains, a pair of hikers peer into the rank darkness of an abandoned outhouse pit and see the mummified remains of a sheriff's uniform, badge still pinned, service revolver rusted but unmistakable, proof that the entire official story was a carefully constructed lie. The real nightmare had been rotting in plain sight all along, protected by badges, silence, and the fear that truth would destroy everyone who knew it. This is the harrowing, true story-inspired saga of betrayal on the border, of a mother's unyielding hope, of deputies who chose corruption over courage, and of the slow, brutal emergence of justice after 16 years of engineered darkness. Welcome to this educational deep dive. We will walk chapter by chapter through every layer of deception and revelation, mastering advanced English vocabulary and idioms, drawing philosophical lessons from real U.S.-Mexico border corruption scandals of the 1980s, 2000s, and connecting this tragedy to universal wisdom about integrity, complicity, and the moral cost of looking away. Because sometimes the most dangerous place to hide the truth is inside the very institution sworn to protect it. The late afternoon sun bled orange across Presidio's cracked asphalt as Detective Simon Reyes hunched over the cold case file in the dim fluorescent glow of the tiny police station, the same file that had haunted every investigator since October 15, 1985. 16 years earlier, Sheriff Ray Holbrook, 42, and Deputy Leah Ortega, 25, had signed out for night patrol at 8:47 p.m., last seen heading toward Highway 67 to follow a lead on missing teenage girls rumored to be trafficked by cross-border truckers operating out of the dusty Spur Saloon. Their cruiser was found the next morning, engine cold, keys in the ignition, driver's door ajar, no blood, no shell casings, no signs of struggle. Within days, the narrative solidified. Holbrook, already the subject of harassment complaints from deputies Debbie Carr and Trish Mororo, had allegedly assaulted or kidnapped Ortega, then fled, perhaps to Mexico, perhaps dead by cartel hands. The FBI dipped in briefly, sniffed cartel involvement, then backed off when no body surfaced. Case officially inactive by 1987. Vocabulary spotlight, solidified, became firm and unchangeable, used metaphorically for narratives that harden into accepted truth, and idiom, wash their hands of it, absolve themselves of responsibility, echoing Pontius Pilate. Historically, the 1980s Texas-Mexico border saw rampant corruption scandals. The 1985 Camarena murder fallout exposed DEA complicity and cartel payoffs to local sheriffs. Operation Leyenda later revealed dozens of U.S. officers on trafficker payrolls. Emotionally, Simon carries the quiet guilt of every detective who inherited the file and failed to crack it. That afternoon in 2001, Officer Martinez bursts in. Hikers found remains in an abandoned outhouse up in the Chinati Mountains. Uniform, badge, revolver. Simon's pulse spikes. He grabs the Holbrook Ortega file, calls Detectives Cara DuPont, Deputies Carr and Mororo, and heads for the mountains. The drive is tense. Carr and Mororo sit in the back, faces pale, exchanging glances Simon cannot read. At the trailhead, Ranger Bill Hutchins leads them up a treacherous path to the rotting outhouse. Ruth and Carl Donnelly, the elderly hikers, explain dropping bifocals into the pit and spotting a boot, then leather, then the unmistakable glint of a sheriff's badge. Forensics carefully dismantle the seat. The mummified body, preserved by arid conditions and anaerobic waste layers, wears Holbrook's uniform, badge number, matching records. Simon feels the ground shift. If Holbrook died here that night, every theory collapses. He didn't kidnap Leah. Someone else killed him and made him disappear. Marisol Ortega arrives, frail but fierce. Simon prepares her gently. It's Ray, not Leah. Her knees buckle. Then where's my daughter? Philosophical teaching from Edmund Burke. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. The department's rush to blame Holbrook allowed the real perpetrators to operate in plain sight for 16 years. Modern English learning. Notice incremental revelation. Badge number matching records. Build suspense. Practice this technique when narrating investigations. Idiom spotlight. The ground shift. Sudden. Destabilizing change in understanding. As search teams fan out to check other abandoned outhouses and Simon orders a lockdown on Highway 67, he senses the case is no longer cold. It is burning. What would you do if the story you had accepted for 16 years suddenly proved to be the biggest lie of all? Would you have the courage to tear it apart, knowing the truth might destroy people you once trusted? Night falls fast over Presidio as Simon and DuPont stake out Cedar Avenue, the street where Miguel Vasquez, the dusty spur bartender on duty the night Holbrook and Ortega vanished, once lived at 59 Cedar. The house now bears a freshly painted 47. The blue Malibu that tailed Simon earlier sits 3 doors down. Simon approaches, hears glass break inside, knocks, is met by a calm man claiming a domestic spat over a broken vase. The silhouette on the sofa never moves. Simon backs off, calls DuPont, and they return to watch. The Malibu vanishes. The house goes dark. At Trish Mororo's home on Sage Street, the front door stands ajar. Blood smears the tile. Furniture overturned. Trish is gone. Debbie Carr's house is empty, her butterfly pin found in the dirt outside 47 Cedar. Simon realizes the 2 deputies who accused Holbrook of harassment in 1985 are now missing the same night his body surfaces. He orders roadblocks on every highway and farm road. No commercial trucks leave Presidio. At the dusty spur, the bartender Carlos Mendoza crumbles under pressure. He signals cartel-connected truckers when law enforcement enters. He overheard talk of lost transportistas, moving girls north. Simon and DuPont race to the Presidio-Ojinaga Bridge. Mexican Federal Police Commander Roberto Hernandez confirms a Freightliner crossed minutes before the bolo. It is parked outside La Rosa de Fuego brothel in Ojinaga's Zona Rosa. The joint raid is swift. DEA seizes heroin. Federal police detain patrons, Simon and DuPont search rooms. They find Debbie and Trish, alive, traumatized, still in uniform. In the final room, Leia Ortega, now Lucia, aged, hardened, wearing a cheap robe, sits motionless. She recognizes Simon's badge, speaks English. You're too late. Vocabulary spotlight. Crumbles under pressure, collapses emotionally when confronted, and idiom in plain sight, openly visible yet unnoticed. Historically, the 1990s, 2000s saw multiple U.S.-Mexico joint operations, e.g., Operation Alliance, Operation Pipeline, exposed local sheriffs and deputies taking cartel bribes to ignore trafficking. The real 1985 murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena triggered similar cross-border cooperation. Emotionally, Leia's arc is devastating, from idealistic deputy to broken survivor who believed she deserved her fate. Simon gently insists, "You were always Deputy Leia Ortega." She sobs, calls for her mother. Philosophical teaching from Viktor Frankl. Even in hell, meaning can be found by choosing how to bear suffering. Leia survived by holding onto the memory of her mother's love. Modern English learning. Dialogue contrast, short, broken sentences, you're too late. Convey trauma, longer, reflective ones. I thought about her every day. Show emerging hope. Practice switching styles for emotional depth. Idiom spotlight. The machinery of justice began to turn. Slow, inevitable process of accountability. As Marisol arrives and mother and daughter collapse into each other's arms, Simon knows the real work. Trials, victim recovery, dismantling the network, has only begun. If a daughter can survive 16 years of hell believing she was forgotten, what unbreakable thread of love might still connect you to someone you think is lost forever? In the fluorescent-lit interview room of the Ojinaga Federal Police Station, Leia Ortega sits across from Simon Reyes, hands wrapped around cooling coffee, voice low and cracked as she reconstructs the night that stole her life. October 15th, 1985. After shift, she and Holbrook head to the dusty spur to chase leads on 3 missing Presidio girls. They order beers to blend in. Within minutes, dizziness hits. Rohypnol in the drinks. Holbrook fights, draws his weapon, is beaten and shot twice by Raul El Lobo Espinoza and his men. Leia, semi-conscious, sees Debbie Carr and Trish Mororo arrive on the shots-fired call. Instead of arresting anyone, they negotiate with El Lobo. Protection money, silence, a story to blame Holbrook. Leia is thrown into a van, taken across the bridge, identity burned, renamed Lucia, sedated for weeks, then forced into sex work at La Rosa de Fuego. Over 16 years, she tries to escape 3 times. Each failure brings worse punishment. She learns to survive by numbing herself, believing she deserves it. Simon listens without interrupting, noting every detail for the indictment. Meanwhile, DuPont interviews Debbie and Trish. Both confess to taking cartel payoffs after Holbrook's murder. Gambling debts and medical bills made them vulnerable. El Lobo promised protection if they helped dispose of the body in the abandoned outhouse, thinking waste service would erase it. When the trail was closed in 1992, the body stayed hidden. The morning Holbrooks remained surfaced. They panicked, tried to flee, were grabbed by cartel enforcers to silence them. Vocabulary spotlight. Numbed herself. Made emotionally insensitive to endure pain, and idiom payoffs, bribes. Historically, the 1990s Texas border saw sheriffs and deputies indicted in multiple counties for accepting cartel money to ignore human smuggling, e.g., 1998 Starr County Scandal, 2006 Operation Border Justice. Emotionally, Leia moves from shame to tentative reclamation, Debbie and Trish from denial to remorse. Philosophical teaching from Hannah Arendt. Evil becomes banal when ordinary people participate through self-interest rather than monstrous intent. The deputies' choices were mundane, yet catastrophic. Modern English learning, sequential narrative. First they drugged us, then they shot him. Builds chronological clarity, practice timelines in investigative writing. Idiom spotlight. Tentative reclamation. Cautious, hesitant return to self. As Leia finishes, Marisol enters. Mother and daughter embrace, 16 years collapsing into sobs. Simon arranges protective custody, safe houses, medical care. Back in Presidio, federal indictments begin. El Lobo arrested in Juarez, deputies charged with accessory to murder and conspiracy. Leia testifies via video from a secure location. Her words dismantle the old narrative. What would you do if shame told you that you no longer deserved rescue? Would you still reach for the hand offered? Or would you stay in the dark believing the lie that you belong there? Years later, on a quiet October morning, Marisol. Ortega stands on the porch of the small house she shares with Leia in a quiet El Paso suburb, watching her daughter walk slowly down the garden path to feed the birds. Leia, now in her early 40s, moves with a cane, scars hidden under long sleeves, but her eyes are clear, her smile tentative but real. She sketches again, birds, desert sunrises, her mother's face, works with a victims advocacy group, speaks at border conferences about trafficking survival. Debbie Carr and Trish Mororo serve reduced sentences after full cooperation. Both enter treatment programs, trying to rebuild lives shattered by guilt. Simon Reyes retires, writes a book on border corruption, dedicates it to the ones who waited to be found. The Chinati Outhouse is dismantled, its boards preserved in a Texas Rangers museum exhibit on justice delayed. Vocabulary spotlight, tentative but real, hesitant yet authentic, and idiom rebuild lives, restore after destruction. Historically, post 2000 U.S.-Mexico cooperation intensified, Operation Chihuahua, Merida Initiative, partly fueled by survivor testimony like Leia's fictionalized here. Emotionally, Leia's arc completes in quiet dignity, from erased deputy to survivor advocate. Philosophical wisdom from Viktor Frankl. Suffering has meaning when it is transformed into purpose. Leia turned her pain into advocacy. Modern English learning. Closure through parallel structure. She sketches again, she speaks, she rebuilds. Creates poetic rhythm. Practice mirroring clauses for emotional impact. Idiom spotlight. Shattered by guilt. Completely broken by remorse. As Marisol watches Leia scatter seed and smile at sparrows landing unafraid, she understands. Healing is not forgetting scars, but learning to live richly beside them. The darkness that swallowed Leia for 16 years was vast, but love, stubborn, searching, refusing silence, was vaster. If a mother's refusal to stop hoping can bring a daughter back from the grave of a living nightmare, what impossible thing might your refusal to look away achieve for someone still trapped? Today, tomorrow, forever? Choose to keep searching. Choose to keep believing. Choose to be the reason someone finally comes home.